I'll be making this painting on this A5 sized watercolor paper, which is of 300 grams per square meter, and it's a textured paper, some fine lines, and it's from Canson. And this is the reference photo of the hibiscus, which I am going to paint loosely. So since this is going to be a loose watercolor painting, I haven't pre-sketched. So you can see here the paper is still empty. I haven't pre-sketched anything or the motif of this hibiscus, because usually loose watercolor painting or freestyle means you don't pre-sketch anything. So we're just gonna loosely start painting it with some reference points. For example, looking at this reference photo, you can see that almost half of the photo is taken up by the petals of the hibiscus or the entire flower, and the other half with the stamen standing out. The rest of it is the background, so I'm not going to focus too much on the background. So what I'm going to do is to divide this paper equally. So basically the measurement is 21 centimeters, so which comes to 10.5. Okay, so this is the half or midpoint of the paper, and from here I'm just going to mark as an indicator where the flower petal stops. And you can see from the reference photo the corners of the other petals is somewhere roughly here, here, and also here. Okay, so the first color that I'm using is carmine or crimson. You can use any shade of light red. My carmine, get it into a light consistency, and I haven't pre-wet the paper, so it's basically starting off with wet on dry. Okay. Let's paint that in. And the second color is going to be a bright red, which is similar to an orange color. Okay. Come back to the details later. Bright red. Okay. I'm not trying to be perfect here, so just paint it loosely. Okay. That's the fourth petal in between. Can't see much from the reference picture. Okay. Okay, you can just draw the outline first. so that you get a better visualization of the petal shape. Okay. Cleaning my brush and damping it with a paper towel so that it's slightly damp. Just trying to move some colors here and leave. I left a gap here because it's a highlight point of this particular petal, which is why I didn't paint it fully. So now I'm just trying to give it a wash, the remaining paint, and I think this is some highlights over here, highlights over here. Okay, just try my best to lift some of that pigment to allow the light areas or highlights to do the job. Just apply in some Indian yellow. Since usually all the red flowers has got some hint of yellow. And they're painting, create some sort of creates some stain in your painting. We're going to come back to that. As I said, watercolors are not going to be finalized in the first layer itself. We are usually supposed to repaint watercolors, and that's the time you get to do lots of adjustments. Notice that there's a gap over here. I left that gap simply because it is actually a light area for this petal. So once again, dabbing my clean wet brush and make it just damp and not fully soaked, and I'm going to glaze that through over here, similar to the one we did over here. Of course you can't see the impact anymore, but might create some effect later. For the stamen part, oops, yes, okay, like I said, yes, just can come back to this later. It's just a rough sketch of the stamen. So next I'm going to use this spray bottle, my water spray bottle, and just spray it. Get some of the area as you spray. See some nice cool effect coming all over there. See how the water bleeds, the paint. Right. Complete painting. So while it's still wet, let's drop in some extra colors. Create some sort of abstract effect on the background. though it looks like half of the painting is almost gone, especially the stamen parts. Okay, we'll come back to that. Yeah. Okay. So back to the painting process. It's, so you can see from the screen it has dried. Show it closer. So notice this area, there's more hint of that Indian yellow. So even though I dropped in the Indian yellow at the later part, once it dried, you can see that it still has an effect on the painting. So you can see some hint of that Indian yellow, which makes it look much more interesting. So we'll move on to paint the next color. I'm going to start off with the petals once again with ruby red. So this is my ruby red. It is much more darker than the carmine, which is why it's called ruby red. Focus on this petal first. So the stamen is supposed to come out over here, so probably I'll leave a line. Now I'll take another brush, since the current one is loaded with pigment, so I'm gonna take a new brush, damp it a bit with some clean water, remove this pigment, and move that earlier pigment that we placed on this petal to create some contradiction. Okay, I'll leave some color here for the stigma. Okay, I have this mixture of blue, which is cobalt blue mixed with turquoise blue. Mix them up, you get a light blue shade. And probably apply on some part of this area so I can see some light effect. As well as onto the stamen. Let's paint the next petal. Just make a shape over here. To indicate the back part of this petal, which is folded a bit into this, I mean according to this view from the reference photo. So basically this is the inner part or the back part of this petal, which is folded, flipped a bit. Once again, damp brush and just drag those pigments in. I think I'll try to make some magenta. Can drop some magenta here as well. If you are the type of person who like this kind of experimental painting, then of course you'll be very patient. Otherwise, probably this can be a bit draggy. This last petal is actually hidden, so it, based on the reference photo, is actually underneath this petal and this petal. So try to make these petals dominant. Pigment. Actually looks a bit dominant over here, so I'll lift some colors up. Since it's the darkest, paint this as dark as possible. Okay. So let's paint in some leaves at the background over here. I'm gonna mix some Indian yellow to a permanent green, so that you get a light sap green like this. Let's just paint there in loosely. It's just some loose leaves at the background. It's okay if it overlaps with this. It gives it extra character onto the painting. Here, some here. Just drag it with your brush, your round brush. Try to shape like a cone. Okay. And of course, let's not forget, maybe now we can have some olive green. I'm quite random with this. Usually I make a voiceover, but I thought, hey, why not I do a real time while I paint. some of that carmine mixture that I had earlier, because notice that usually the hibiscus leaves has got like a red hint, red lines on their, as their vein, on their bright green or dark green leaves. So let's just put that in. And maybe we can spray one thing here. Extra spray here and there. Drag some of that pigment. At the end of the day, these are background leaves. You don't want it to look too dominant, because our subject matter is this particular hibiscus. My hair. It's dry. So this time I am going to use a mixture of magenta with carmine, so you get a light bright red to this part. It's lightly dried. Avoiding the stamen area. Okay. Petal, also the same thing. Basically we're just repainting the petal and reshaping it, and we'll lift out some pigments later. To extend it further over here, since this petal seemed too dominant. I want a balance between this and this. And this one, I'll add more carmine instead. As I said, that is the darkest petal of all. Does it still look bright? So lift some pigment over here for that stamen to show. Lift out some pigment with your damp brush. So just lift the pigment and dab it onto your paper towel. Lift some here, some pigments from here, so that we can notice the darkness of this particular petal. So just lift some pigment there. So next I'm using a rigger brush which has a longer and fine tip to paint the stamen, and I'm using a mix of carmine and the earlier bright red that looked similar to an orange. Probably just this corner, not the whole part of the stamen. Just drag it top. Some dots as well. Just place it loosely so that it looks more natural, right? Add some extra color, which should be Indian yellow. Okay. While that red paint was placed, you can place that Indian yellow in here as well. You can mix into the stamen as well. So to finish the look of this hibiscus, we need some dark areas to create that contrast between the light and dark areas, and as well as fine details, which is the veins on the flower petals. So I've decided to use a burgundy. You see this color, a burgundy or maroon. I mixed some sapphire to the carmine mix or your light red mix, and you'll achieve this burgundy. And I'm going to use the same rigger brush. Now the flower where the stamen meets, okay, and get that. It's like a negative painting now, since I'm trying my best not to cover this stamen area. Drag that in. Same thing over here, avoiding that stamen part. Okay, once placed, what I'm going to do is, it may look too harsh if you leave the lines on the painting just like that. So once again, clean that brush, just lightly try to glaze carefully that vein spot that we painted, that I painted just now. Okay. Yep. If the color is overwhelming, just keep cleaning your brush and dab it with your paper towel and just glaze them over again. Yep. With the damp brush. Now this part of the flower is still bright or light according to the reference photo, so I'm not going to concentrate much on the middle part of the flower. So the veins shall appear into the corners. So it's like due to the light reflection or highlight, the vein can be seen from the bottom, but it goes vanishing towards the middle because of the shine appearing on the petal, so we can hardly see it. Finally, for the last petal, there's veins on it as well, so let's drop that in. Can paint this part a bit darker since there's the darkest petal. Okay, once again, damp brush glazing. If you want, you can extend some of this burgundy mix to the stigma details. So if you think you want to use the same burgundy mix for the leaves, even though we're not focusing too much on the leaves, as I said, the hibiscus leaves have brown edges with a hint of red. Probably we can paint that in, and similar to that veins effect. Once again with the damp brush, clean damp brush, drag that color in. Don't want it to look sharp. You can drag it whichever way you want. You can drag it inwards. So if you want to create some more highlights once your painting is dry, you can also use white gouache. Probably we can extend it to this. Just to give an extra attention to this diamond area. Okay, drop in some dots as well, not too much. Just drag your brush like this, holding it this way, and not too much of that paint loaded in. And since the paper is textured, it has some fine lines, so as I drag my brush loaded with this white gouache, seem to do some extra trick. So if you have a textured paper, you can achieve the same effect. We're done with the highlights, and to finish this we can make some splatters. So for splatters I thought I'll use a contrasting color so that pops up the painting even more. I'm using the same rigger brush, and this is the color. It's actually cyan blue. It's very bright blue. Just splatter that in. Okay, Indian yellow. Primary colors work well usually. And use your spray bottle again. Spray a little bit to get that splatter to do the work. Yep. Yeah. See what I mean? And move the painting a bit, tilt them here and there. Can add more splatter if you want. Clean up some part. It's okay if they mix up. Okay. Probably we can use white gouache I used earlier. Should I use this brush earlier? But I thought I wanted to make bigger splatters. And can I just also tap your fingers? Yeah, but I always wonder, why should we limit to brush? We can also use a finger to dab in those splatters. Yep. And we are done with this. So here it is, the final painting. Once it has dried. So did you like this painting process? If you find this tutorial fun, then do give me a thumbs up. Share the video with your family and friends, as well as subscribe to my channel if you'd like to support me. And for those who have already subscribed, thank you so much for your support. And I hope to see you once again in another exciting tutorial. See you again. Bye.